Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley Jenkins.
And I'm Gus Sorola.
Has Valve's mad science experimentation with Steam gone too far? That might be the case, according to some angry video game developers.
In an effort to clean up Steam's user reviews from abuse, Valve's pushed out a big change to the platform that's ruffling the feathers of quite a few game studios, and now a number of them are speaking out in protest.
Don't want to ruffle those feathers.
Ruffle beverages.
The incendiary changes were announced yesterday as part of Valve's ongoing attempt to clean up the unholy hellhole known as Steam user reviews. In a blog post, the company outlined the most recent adjustments. Some are good, like the addition of better, more relevant filters for browsing reviews.
However, other changes are going to be a little less welcome, because Valve has now decided to do away with reviews from gamers who didn't purchase their games directly from Steam, meaning that any reviews coming from users with a Steam key won't be factored into a game's overall rating.
Now, why would Valve make a change like that? That's a pretty huge change. According to them, review scores have become such a big deal for developers that some are willing to take dishonest and deceptive measures to artificially inflate the score, and most of those are associated with the use of Steam keys.
Valve wrote, "The majority of review score manipulation we're seeing by developers is through the process of giving out Steam keys to their game, which are then used to generate positive reviews. Some developers organize their own systems using Steam keys on alternate accounts. Some organizations even offer paid services to write positive reviews."
Valve went on to say that following an in-depth analysis of Steam titles, there were as many as 160 games, and probably a lot more, that had a much higher percentage of positive reviews from players who had used a Steam key versus those who had bought the game directly from Steam.
They do recognize that the skewing of Steam key reviews to be higher could sometimes be through honest means. Some developers, for instance, have strong, solid communities outside of Steam and sell their games directly to their fans, giving them a Steam key in exchange. Other instances may involve Kickstarter and other crowdfunding campaigns which provide Steam keys as a backer reward.
And you know those people are probably more inclined to be positive about something that they already paid money for and have been supporting for years,
something that they're
all through
passionate
development.
about. Yeah.
Exactly. But none of that matters as far as Valve is concerned. Despite those possibilities, the company still decided that, as of today, the recent and overall review scores we show at the top of a product page will no longer include reviews written by customers that activated the game through a Steam product key. That means you, people who bought a physical copy that's not a physical copy at all.
Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean reviews written by users who received their game via Steam keys are going away completely. You'll still be able to write reviews, it just won't affect the game's actual score.
Right. According to Valve, this change will significantly affect reviews on about 14% of Steam games. Considering there are a total of more than 3,500 Steam games, that 14% comes out to more than 500 games affected, which is quite a bit higher than the 160 games they said they found in the results of their study.
While this adjustment to reviews was meant to stop developer deception, so far we've heard a substantial outcry from indie developers who are not too pleased. In fact, quite a few indie developers saw most, if not all, of their legitimate reviews disappear.
Which can be a pretty big deal if you're a smaller developer. If you're fortunate enough to get people to notice your small game, which can be really difficult considering that there are over 3,500 games to choose from on Steam, and people notice it and they leave positive reviews, and that could make all the difference between whether or not someone else decides to actually buy the game or not.
And now a number of these developers are making their voices heard, taking to Twitter to air their grievances with Valve.
Simon Roth, developer of God Game Maya, said, "That's me probably going out of business then. My crowdfunders and direct sales were how I hoped to improve my score."
Josh Sutphin, creator of Legacy of the Elder Star, said, "So Steam cut our review count for Legacy of the Elder Star by more than 50% today because we weren't struggling enough already, apparently."
Designer Wes Platt of Prologue Games said that the changes actually helped review scores for their game Knee Deep, but still didn't like it, saying it feels like Steam took a machete to a problem that called for a scalpel and maybe some warning. So they didn't tell developers that they were doing this. Just surprise, that's the way that goes. They're like YouTube. Things happen and then people go, what?
Jonas Karatzis, designer of Talos Principle and Serious Sam 4. "Hey, look, half the reviews of The Sea Will Claim Everything no longer count, and none of the people who back the Council of Crows will be able to support it."
That does suck. And that list goes on and on. So clearly this isn't just a small change with innocent consequences. It stands to majorly impact a few developers, and probably not even the ones that Valve's trying to punish in the first place, unfortunately. The biggest grievances seem to be with the crowdfunding games, which can now no longer be reviewed by anyone who supported them, which hardly seems fair. I mean, I get that they're probably biased in positive direction unless you get somehow like that hate train rolling and then the momentum's really hard to stop. But for the most part, people who back your stuff are going to be super happy and want to support it and evangelize it. That's the point.
Unless you're Mighty Number 9.
Unless you're Mighty Number 9. That hate train rolled hard, yeah.
Developers trying to game the system is obviously a bad thing for gamers, and we've seen quite a bit of shady dealings in this arena in the past, like when Drago Entertainment was allegedly paying for good reviews of their MMO based on Tad Williams novels.
I mean, Tad Williams doesn't need the help. Tad Williams novels are delightful already.
Maybe the MMO needs the help, though.
Well, maybe that's true. Okay. But at the same time, it's also odd that Valve is focused on developer-paid reviews when deceptive reviews from gamers are just as big, if not a much bigger problem.
We've seen plenty of times in the past how gamers have taken advantage of the review system, mostly to voice displeasure over developers' recent actions.
Yeah, brigading!
Most recently, this happened with the early access title Ark Survival Evolved, when they charged for their paid DLC.
While the game's still in, what is it? Early access.
The page for the main game, rather than the actual DLC, flooded with negative reviews, meaning that the people bombing Ark's score were angry gamers who hadn't actually bought the DLC itself.
Right, which is a problem. And there's also that thing that people tend to do where they'll see a score and they'll be like, that's higher score than I think it should be. And so they'll, instead of a 10, or instead of maybe a 7, which they think it deserves, they'll give it a 0 because they're trying to bring the average down to where they think it ought to be.
The Metacritic effect is what I call that.
The Metacritic effect. So yes, charging for DLC while in early access in Ark's case was a dick move. But the purpose of the review page isn't for that, it's for legitimate reviews of the game. If you've enjoyed the game for hundreds of hours and then you get angered by a decision the developers make, is a review really the place to leave the feedback for DLC that you didn't even buy? Or maybe does that belong somewhere else?
Plus, if the developer decided to make a change, how many people would go back and update those reviews to reflect the new positive shift?
No.
Not gonna happen.
That takes work.
Now the game has a bad score forever, even if gamers got what they wanted.
And that's part of why Valve implemented the new changes to the review system earlier this year, which do actually factor in recent scores as well as overall scores and favor the recent ones. So say a developer or a game goes through a bad patch and then later they get better and it'll reflect the current experience, as it were. But it didn't address the actual issue of gamers using reviews as a place to vent frustrations, unfortunately, with a company, even if they love the actual game.
And that's not to mention how many reviews are written by gamers who either barely played a game, are simply having tech support issues, or are just writing a review to be funny, only to get that review stickied as helpful.
So there are plenty of things that need to be addressed with Steam reviews still, and keys just seems like one small facet of the larger entire issue.
Fortunately, Valve does seem to be listening. They sent a statement to Gamma Sutra that they're monitoring the feedback and evaluating reviews, but who knows if they'll revert the changes.
Or further tweak them. Hopefully, for the sake of these indies that are affected, Valve finds a better long-term solution when you consider how much of Valve's business comes from the explosion of indie titles on their platform over the last few years, and crowdfunding games in particular. You'd think they'd work pretty hard at that.
What do you guys think of Valve outlawing Steam key reviews? Let us know in the comments.
And for future updates on all the Steam shenanigans, like this video and subscribe to The Know.
And pray the deal doesn't get altered further.
No.